But everyone, please put your hands together for the fantastic Dr. Matt Grimshaw. Thank you very much, Matt.
Okay, so you can see everything shown okay? All good?
Yep, all good.
So thanks, Vanessa and Libby. You've set me up absolutely perfectly. So hopefully this aligns with what you've kind of been mentioning today. First of all, I just want to go back to the overall aim of what this conference has been about. So the title has been Risk is in the Eye of the Beholder. And as we kind of mentioned, we've been asking people to think about redesigning mineral value chains and business models within the mining sector. And what I want to do today is to present everyone with a choice. Considering everything we've learned this week, all the kind of fantastic discussions, we can go away and continue operating the way we always have, accept those risks and take them on, or we can take away a lot of the things we've learned and we could do something about them. We can push for change and challenge the status quo that we see. So this kind of analogy I've taken from the film The Matrix. If you've ever seen the film, in the film, the main character is presented with a choice. The blue pill, he wakes up as if nothing had ever happened, forgets it, and carries on his day-to-day life. And the red pill, he takes it, he wakes up and he uncovers a truth about reality and he has to do something about it. And when I was Googling the photo for this slide, I thought it was a great analogy. I realized that the red pill analogy has actually been co-opted by various right-wing, alt-right-wing groups and conspiracy theorists. So let me be very, very clear. I am not a conspiracy theorist. That is not the aim of this talk. And a lot of the stuff I'm going to talk about today is my own personal views, but I look forward to being challenged on them. And while we might not be in Never Never Land, let's see how far down the rabbit hole I can try and take you. So why do we need to rethink this approach? Well, honestly, this is something I've wrestled with a long time. I'm an exploration geologist, so I've been really working at that front end of the value chain, really kind of generating all these projects. Libby kind of gave a great overview of why the opportunity is so great in that kind of space. And I've worked with really good, competent geologists in academia and exploration consulting. And throughout that time, one of the things I've always struggled with is that the great work they're doing, I've often felt just isn't connecting and really adding that value or the purpose that I think should be there. It got to the point where I was so frustrated with the sector that I actually quit geology. I was prepared to walk away and start a new kind of career path. And this was around the time that my wife and I had our twin daughters. And I kind of realized that when they get to my age, they're going to ask me, what did you do? And I needed to have a good answer for them. So I went back to geology, thing I actually really care about. And since that point, I've really had a commitment to really challenge things and fight for change that I really want. That's how I end up working with a company like Satala in risk management and sustainability, but very much with those kind of exploration geology roots in that thing. This is the first time I've tried to put together some of these thoughts in a semi-coherent way, so please bear with me. A lot of these ideas kind of came to a head a few years ago at a big industry conference. A lot of you, if you've been to any of these, you'll know there's row after row, hundreds and hundreds of booths filled with very competent geologists, really good projects, people telling a good story. But one of the things you kind of realize is that almost every single one of those projects is never actually going to become a mine, and the mineral that they're looking for is never actually going to come to fruition. So one of the things I was doing, I was walking along and asking and speaking to a lot of these geologists and these people who had a good idea. I said, do you not think the way that we actually generate product for the market is a bit broken, because this all seems very disconnected and not very efficient? And almost everybody said in some kind of form or other, yeah, it is a bit weird, but that's just the game we play. That's how it's always been done. And that's something that really, really stuck with me. Here's a statistic which almost anyone in exploration will be very familiar with. 1 in 1,000 projects, exploration projects, becomes a mine. This figure was from the Minerals Council of Australia, and I want to see at the bottom, it's from a references 2010, an abstract from a conference. Mark Burnett gave a talk earlier in the week, and he kind of referenced a talk that BHP gave in 2014. Kind of yet to really see a reliable methodology of how you get to this kind of number. Either way, we know as a sector is pretty bad. But when you use this statistic, 1 in 1,000, to communicate the value proposition of what we do as an exploration sector, to people who aren't familiar with mining, it comes across very much as if it's just a gamble. It's a bet. Put a chip on 1 in 1,000, you never know, you might strike lucky. But as we all know, especially as geologists, no project is equal, and probably 600, maybe more of these projects should never have existed in the first place. Murray Hitzman made a good point earlier in the week, and he said throughout his career he's realised projects that he's pointed at and gone, yeah, that'll never be a project. So why aren't more of us pointing things out and making that difference? Another graph that if you're involved with exploration, you will see a lot, which is this is from Richard Shoddy, and this is exploration expenditure versus number of discoveries. And what you're kind of starting to see now is that exploration expenditure is kind of continuing to remain quite high, but discoveries are kind of dropping. And for me, this tells me two things. One thing, the exploration sector is bad at what they're doing. Not necessarily the work they're doing is bad, but also that decoupling that's starting to happen. That is where the opportunity is. That's the opportunity to do something radically different and time to innovate. Einstein has this definition of insanity as we keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. I'll leave it at that. Now I'm getting into loads of trouble, so I'm going to pick apart the Lassonde curve. If no one's come across the Lassonde curve, this is by Pierre Lassonde, and this is basically a mental model. So this is Andy Reynolds earlier in the week gave a good talk about how we justify and rationalize how we do things. This is a model that most of the minerals sector uses as a way of rationalizing and showing the value chain of exploration. So it goes from, on the left-hand side, the concept exploration, all the way through to that kind of discovery and mine and closure in the end. And I've highlighted value on the left because throughout this week, we've heard value referred to in various ways: brand value, social value, other stuff. But this very much puts value in the frame of shareholders. And that's one of the things that I really see as a potential problem, is that everything that we're doing is in the hands of the shareholder. When you talk about this, you're looking for that next big bump in the Lassonde curve. And increasingly, I kind of see that because the power is on the right-hand side of this, so in the big mining companies, the big finance houses, they have all the power in deciding how we go about exploring what we end up doing. And that trickles down to the junior sector, the exploration sector, and leads to various inefficiencies where I see there's more value that can be created than just merely shareholder value. So then I've kind of tried to diagnose some of the symptoms. Yes, we can go into them, pick them apart more, but how do these come out as symptoms? I don't want to spend too long on this because it just ends up being a whinge fest. But that kind of strategy of the big company wanting the big deposits, it's in their interest. It makes a lot of sense. Economies of scale. You end up looking for tier 1 deposits. When I say tier 1, these are the massive company making deposits. And so what that does is it means that a lot of the juniors, the smaller companies are looking for deposits that kind of will take that because they'll make the most money out of them. Potentially there's other deposits out there that kind of somewhere in between that may not be as economic, but also have a lot of value in other ways. This kind of incentive for shareholder value goes back to short-term strategy. And a lot of junior exploration companies, quite rightly, it's not in their interest to develop a mine. So they're just looking to sell it. So it's not in their interest to really think about this stuff. Richard Harrington talked about exploring for closure. It's a great concept, but it's just not how we're incentivizing the sector. Also, another thing that budgets in exploration often linked to commodity price in exploration. So this is really early stage. Quite often mines will take 15, 20 years to be developed. So I know there's various reasons on this, but why is what I'm doing now, looking for a mineral that's not going to come out of the ground and be sold to someone in 15 years, why is my budget linked to that? And I'd suggest it's potentially because the market and exploration is driven by hype rather than value generation. And then the other thing, Vanessa mentioned this as well, because the metrics we're using are slightly skewed and not around sustainability and other things, we hugely value technical qualities over anything else. So quite often in an exploration project, all you really care about is what is in the ground, how much minerals is there, and then you'll get to the point where you'll have to think about other things in the way that you're not taking into consideration the broader value proposition of what it means to explore and develop a mine in a certain area. And this also leads to ESG as an afterthought, which is a big thing that I've been trying to work with Sarah and some of the other guys, is that you need a project that has technical qualities, and then you make the ESG fit. Oh, now we need to get ESG to work to allow us to do what we're doing. So how do we avoid this? It's how I feel like for a lot of the time. Jeff Deans earlier in this week talked about outsiders looking in. This kind of how do we stop how do we make a difference with this? And another analogy I like to use is that it feels like I'm walking into a casino and asking everyone, telling everyone I don't like the game they're playing. And then everyone's saying, well, we play by the rules. Some people do it very well, make a lot of money. Some people, a bit more skirt around the rules, maybe not as great. But either way, it's the game we play. So maybe what we need to do is change the game and create some new rules. And this is where we start getting into ideas of changing the strategy of project generation and develop exploration projects that redefines value and what is actual success. So one way to do this, another mental model. I'm getting lots of stars from Andy Reynolds earlier this week, hopefully. This is one way to rationalize how we get to that future and that change. It's called the 3 horizons model. Horizon 1 is this business as usual, probably where we are right now. Horizon 2 is the kind of innovations, a lot of the great stuff we talked about this week. But what I'm really challenging everyone to think about is that Horizon 3, the future that we can't quite envisage, but we're trying to get to. And this is the thing that I spend a lot of time worrying and thinking about. I have some trying to rationalize a lot of this, but where I started off on this journey was on the extreme end of the scale is why are exploration companies making money when they're never going to be successful in the end? So why is an exploration company could potentially only make money when the product comes out of the ground? But I was going to give them money to do that, so that's not really very rational. I then went down the rabbit hole of could you have a not-for-profit exploration to break that need for shareholder return, that real instant boost, instead of actually developing other stuff? Again, it's not a very pragmatic way of actually generating finance and creating funding. So where I've kind of ended up is that we need to think longer. You'll hear this in various other sectors in sustainability, climate change. We need to change the metrics, how we do things. This is a huge challenge. Politics is in a 4-year cycle. If we take a much longer view and we're saying we actually need these materials, and this is from the people who actually need them, not the consumers, but maybe the potential of the producers, so the OEMs, the tech companies. If we can get them to take interest in the exploration sector, not the mining sector, which at the moment we're seeing various interests that they're starting to invest in mining projects and minerals projects. The problem with them investing in that stage is that there's already a legacy problem. All of these kind of symptoms that I've kind of tried to diagnose are already embedded in those projects. So we could just ask them it's peanuts for them to invest something into the junior sector. I'm not asking for vertical integration system, but potentially changing that kind of strategy and encouraging a different way of bringing value and finance into the sector could allow us to challenge the traditional investors seeking that kind of bump in the Lassonde curve and redefine and extend a mine beyond just the product out of the ground and really start to bring in some of those, the environment, the local populations, but also get the stuff that we actually want and need out of the ground. So Libby teed this up perfectly. Exploration is often seen as the place where there's the most negative risks, but I think this is where there's the biggest area to really have huge opportunity. By broadening our funding sources and kind of refining our project selection process, we can foster a mining sector that is not only more aligned with today's environmental and social standards, but also more resilient and forward-thinking. It's about creating partnerships, collaboration again, that look beyond mere financial returns and considering the broader impacts of mining activities going forward. And so to finish, my last kind of talk, last kind of slide, I mainly put this in for Ludovine because I know she'd like it. I'm just a geologist, so please help me. I'm learning as much as I can about risk management, sustainability, stepping outside of my silo, trying to expand things. Yes, everything comes back to exploration for me. Mark Burnett and Andy Reynolds were also talking about boundary spanners. That goes well into what Vanessa was saying, these people, how do we kind of incentivize them to be in our kind of things? But I'm not a finance person. I don't know the sector. So how can we kind of challenge this? And I'm looking for allies in the sector. So how do we engage with those people and really challenge the status quo? And I look forward to hearing everyone's feedback on this. Thanks.
Matt Grimshaw, you legend. Thank you very, very much. Everyone, please, round of applause for fantastic Dr. Matt Grimshaw. Excellent. Not only are Ludovine and I breathing a sigh of relief because you've managed to sum up rather a lot of this conference already with your talk, so thank you for that. But we've had lots and lots of chatter going on all of the different platforms while you were speaking. One of the questions here that came in from Dave in the chat. So Dave says, Matt, does it help anyone to begin with a much broader regional holistic exploration strategies rather than let's find mineral X in place Y? In a sense, it automatically increases the chance of finding something somewhere. Sounds like a nice idea, but in 2024, can it be real? What do you reckon?
Well, companies do this, which is called the project generation model. So basically, often this is private finance for other people. And that kind of model in exploration is they pick, they don't have that real instant return on this project must be success. So they'll take lots of projects from an area, filter through them extremely quickly and work through and then zoom into those ones that are actually going to have success, which I think is a fantastic approach. And that's kind of what I would envision this way to do it, how this kind of funding mechanism would work. The problem is then how do they then get out? So often I hear in that kind of project generation privately funded thing and they say close the loop. So what they're looking for is when they get a project that is of success, they then need to IPO it and float it, and that's their point of exit. So they're literally making money off just floating project ideas, which again isn't really the thing. So that's kind of maybe one of the things that I didn't get across, is that a lot of the tools and mechanisms and ideas that are currently happening in the sector are absolutely fine. They're great. They're doing a really good thing, but they're not incentivized in quite the right way to really get that efficiency and joined up thinking. So again, it's quite small tweaks. That's why I don't think this is really, although I'm saying it's radically different, it's not that much. We can do it pretty easy, I think.
So Matt, do you think that actually this is something where instead of us building a totally different casino or theme park or something like that over the road, we're actually in the same building, we're just trying to set up a slightly different game, trying to expand that analogy?
Yeah, but I don't know, because like the house always wins in that sector, and then the house is the shareholders, And what I'm saying is the people who should technically win are the people who need these products. So the tech companies, the car companies. So it should be their game that we're playing in, ultimately.
Okay.
Because if that's what we're kind of saying, is that we should be exploring for stuff that society and people deem that they want. Gold can be thrown in there, diamonds can be thrown, whatever you want can be thrown in there if society says we need it. But we should be getting there in a way that is the most efficient way of doing it. And that's what I think is the different way of thinking.
And so you've got those, so I guess the kind of the users with regards to the minerals and the metals that come out of the ground, but then also as well, and actually building on Dave's question, looking at how the UN framework classification resource management, so UNFC, and then every other acronym under the sun is developing at the moment. That seems to be going more into the world that Doris was speaking about earlier on this week. So actually looking at everything that's potentially in the ground, but then also as well, let's roll in agriculture, forestry, the air, etc., and say, well, hang on a second, in our natural systems, what does this value look like, and how do we optimize all of that going into the future? Now, I know that we speak a lot about this, and I'm sure we can put one of my recent talks into the chat on that as well. But Matt, what do you reckon?
Yes, as an exploration geologist, it's something I always struggle with. Is I go to an area, try and find something. Oh, if there's nothing, I'll leave and gone. That's me done. And you're dealing with a local community. You're speaking with them and trying to get their permission to basically just go in and take the data and information, when in essence it should be a collaborative approach. And if we are really not that successful in doing this, there's definitely very easy ways that the exploration companies can just tweak the metrics of doing things, like you said. So if you're trying to explore something and you don't actually find anything, instead of just leaving, you can potentially have provided the local community with more data about their local land. You could have improved their local roads. You could have given them some access to renewable power, training, qualifications. It's quite easy to create value in various other ways throughout the whole of this mineral value chain. And like you said, even if your exploration project the rock in that ground might not be economic at this point, there's other parts of the landscape, like you said, the trees, the forestry, carbon credits, this whole geothermal, there's a whole range of other values that are so often missed and not considered within this process, that potentially could even boost the value of that project at the end of the day. So again, we're just asking mining companies to come in and invest in this kind of stuff because of the product in the ground. There could be a way where basically we're getting other types of finance to come in that could then, yeah, you can mine it for a few years, but then when it closes, we're going to take it on and build a, plant a forest or build a business park or whatever. If those people are considered and consulted from the earliest phase, we're generating a much longer term kind of future, this kind of thing.
Yeah, and this is where it wraps in together, like who should be creating that ecosystem of different organizations? Should it be the state? Should it be a company? What is actually going on with that? But more on that later. Matt, there's one final question that I'd like to ask you before we move on to our next speaker, and that's from Ben in the Q&A. Ben asks, Matt, if I said go and find small deposits, how hard would that be?
Pretty easy, because a lot of them are known. So this is where I think there's an opportunity potentially in Europe for these brownfield deposits that were historically economic and now just too small and close or whatever. So again, a large kind of mining company may not want to go near those assets, but if you go to those with a kind of view of, okay, we're gonna, a bit like what Steve Despacito was talking about, from a reopening those mines, but with adding value in various other ways. So reclaiming mines, but while also improving the environment in that kind of area. That would also tick the, the EU critical raw materials kind of, we want more materials in our backyard to kind of shore up our kind of strategic plans. You could end up ensuring more jobs in the local community, developing brownfield sites, dealing with historical, others kind of things like that. I think that's absolutely perfectly possible. The other concept that I've tried going down, but I know there's a whole, Alison Ord did a really good talk about this kind of distribution of mineralization models around various statistical systems. And I go on the zip curve. I'm not sure if anyone's aware of that, but basically quantity of deposits versus size. And one of the things that we tend to look for, as I said, we'd look for these tier 1 deposits. And that's the main thing we're looking at. Same in research, we're just exploring the freaks, the anomalies. And there must be a space in between that we can maybe couple together a few of those interestingly deposits that could be marginal, that could potentially add value in the later line. And again, if you get investment from a car manufacturer, whoever, they really only need to make financial return on the product at the end of the day. So they could lose some money throughout other places. So again, you're changing the metrics of success.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Matt. I'll let you carry on addressing all of those questions in the chat. Everyone, please put your hands together for the fantastic Matt Grimshaw.